Let's start. Welcome everyone to this AI CTO roundtable. My name is Uri, and we are here with an incredible lineup of technical leaders to explore how AI is changing the way we build, test, and ship code. I'm very excited that we have this forum joining. So let's start with a short introduction of the panel, and then we'll jump to a few questions that we want to discuss. And feel free to submit questions in the Q&A section in the Zoom. And yeah, let's start. Itamar, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Uri. So I'm Itamar Friedman, the CEO and co-founder of Qodo. Okay, it's a CTO roundtable, so I guess I need to explain what the fuck, sorry. So my previous role, I was the CTO of a company that was acquired by Alibaba, and we were basically doing ML all around, including in mobile phones. And Alibaba, I was in the amazing organization that was focused on ML. So technical background. And today at Qodo, what we do, short is we may help team verify the code and software development quality with AI code review tools as an example. And today we announced, by the way, a CLI tool. Passing to Andrew.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. I'm leading Journey Code and Agent development inside JetBrains, and overall the direction inside JetBrains, where we experiment, create, and launch new tooling for this new phase of software development we are all moving into. So first, which is GA now, this is Journey Code and Agent, but overall, like our focus is to find what's missing, what other tools we need to make it comfortable, fun, and safe to develop using all these new tools. Tom?
Go next.
Okay, hi, I'm Tom Akehurst. I'm WireMock's CTO and co-founder. I'm also the creator of the open source project WireMock. I'm here talking about this because we're currently exploring how API simulation can help support the generation of code using AI and generally support kind of AI driven sort of creation activities. Jeremy?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I am Jeremy Freeman. I'm co-founder and CTO over here at Allstacks. And, I've been in the software development space for about 15 years, formerly trained in AI machine learning, and am really excited to be in the productivity space around software engineering today as well, because we're getting to see all the cool impacts of generative AI on how software development is being made. And today we're focused on helping teams and organizations understand the impact of AI-assisted software development on their organizational deliverables.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, actually, maybe about myself. So I'm the CEO and co-founder for WireMock. And yeah, Jeremy, let's start with you because basically in this session, we want to talk about what a lot of us are feeling, that there is a big promise of AI, speeding things up, but then not always delivering real outcome. And you mentioned that Allstacks are doing like kind of developer productivity measurements. And recently I read the Google Dora report talking about the fact that velocity is going up, but productivity is not really showing up. So I'm kind of curious to hear what is your data in Allstacks showing about these things and about the impact of AI.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Thanks, Yuri. We're shockingly seeing something different than the Dora report showing. In a lot of cases where our companies are measuring it, we're seeing an increase in productivity. It's not the 2x, 10x gains yet, but I think teams are still learning and adopting these technologies, and we can actually start to see in cases where teams are picking up, say, GitHub Copilot to help with software engineering, we're seeing cycle times for bug fixes and feature development start to decrease. I think there's a lot more to it, especially when you consider some of the follow-on effects around how do you successfully leverage AI in phases outside of the specific code creation steps?
So you are seeing a different picture than what we see in the Google Dora report, and actually seeing an increase in productivity.
Yeah, we're seeing a slight increase in productivity, kind of across the board for people that are adopting these tools.
Okay. And is it like in the level, like maybe a question to the rest of the forum? Do you resonate with that? Do you feel that there is an increase of productivity, or there is a decrease of productivity? We'll be glad to hear about that.
Sure, I can take it. So, okay, I think it's important to divide the market, the ecosystem, etc., to different categories, because I think like the productivity boost could like be very dramatically different. The variance is high. If you are a C++ firmware middleware shop versus if you're like a Python hacking 10 team or a Node.js 100 team or a Java 10,000 team, that will be very very different. And another, by the way, taking the team and dividing even within the team into different, professions and seniority, like the junior, the mid-senior, the seniors would be different. I heard, for example, that junior developers like actually are being able to ship much more, but then creating a lot of depth and actually like the seniors that are not rejecting AI, and some of them do, are actually being able to use like steer the AI the best, give them the right prompt, being able to use AI tools for review and utilize them properly. Again, steer those as well. So I see big differences. We actually created like a forum with our clients. Once in a while, we do like a dinner or whatever, and I see among the clients and within those clients like very very different like sharing qualitative and quantitative. In general, I see and if you average that, I do see like a slight gain, exactly what you said, like velocity supposedly of writing more code is and fast writing the code faster, but the productivity there is a gain, but like similar to what Jeremy said, more in the 10-20% than the magnificent 2x 10x. Again,
Yeah.
I did see one of our clients with which has thousands of developers reporting 3x and 8x. But then when I zoom in, I noticed like it's a specific jobs to be done. Okay, and that's like very important to look on specific use cases.
Okay, great. I have a follow-up question to you on that, but before that, Tom, Andrew, anything to add on that?
I would actually add that I see the very similar patterns, that it's hard to talk about this increase on average, because like for some tooling, this is very easy to see the impact, for example, the code completion, or like going to chat and asking questions instead of going through thousands of web pages. So like in some areas, the increase is not huge. It's small, but like it's very easy to get. For example, for coding agents, it's not that straightforward. There are some areas where the productivity boost is like 2x, 5x, and like for very specific niche tasks. And also, so first, it requires a good intuition on what type of tasks you need to use it. Second, it requires a little bit of prompting experience. I would say that with the same coding agent and like smart models, if you fail to shape the task correctly, you will get some strange code as a result. And third, it's definitely amazing part that I think that we like the entry point to doing changes in code bases is lowering. Like for example, designers can do some prototypes, or like for some small tasks, bugs, literally managers can do it now. So that's also where like interesting side effects. Like we've got new roles of people in our team, like who's working with the code base.
Okay, interesting. Tom, anything to add?
I mean, I suppose it barely needs saying really that productivity is really hard to measure in terms of software engineering, and I think the outcomes you get from these exercises are very sensitive to how you try and model it, and you know clearly the Allstacks approach and the Dora approach are going to be different and emphasizing different things, and also I suppose just to reinforce the other points as well, it's one of those areas where the average taking an average can kind of hide the real story that. Looking at the how that performance kind of segments down to different profiles of organizations, you know, is where you really learn something. I mean, I'm curious what everyone else thinks of this, but my expectation is that the increase you get would correlate strongly with the existing sort of engineering maturity you have as an organization. So if you're really good at all the sort of DevOps and test automation, kind of the kind of things that get you into sort of short feedback loops, then you would be very well equipped to benefit a lot from AI generated code. Whereas if you're a more sort of backwards leaning organization that hasn't really got the hang of that stuff yet, then it's not going to solve those problems for you.
Good points. So following what Tom said and Itamar, what you mentioned before, I wanted to kind of we talked about productivity, and overall productivity has a lot of different aspects, like Tom mentioned, and Jeremy in Allstacks probably will say that they are measuring productivity in their product. But I read your report that you released, Itamar, about AI code quality. That is the kind of a survey that you ran that I found interesting. Plus, I read you had a LinkedIn post that you posted out of all a lot of LinkedIn posts that you are posting, but it talked about AI hyperreality, and it was really interesting to read the comments. People were very emotional about that. What do you think about the quality of AI delivered code and how it helped in the end-to-end delivery in that aspect?
Yeah, I think like there's two sides to this coin. Like we're seeing like engineers saying that they used a 1.5 prompt to develop a game that made them $10 million and sounds amazing, and now like you can build like startups like with 7 prompts. Like we need to do a leaderboard. Here's the amount of prompts I need to reach to 10 million ARR or so. And on the other hand, you see also quite a lot of people reporting that coding is 10 to 30% of what they do daily when you're talking about heavy duty software. And there's a lot of things that you do need to do in addition: review, test, architecture, understanding the requirements, etc. And even then, like you need to know how to steer that code generation really, really well. And then we didn't know what will be the results of the report, and I think like it shows these two sides. Like on one hand, people do say that they're getting productivity gains, and they do say they even enjoy it. Like because I did hear some here and there of people saying like it's ruining my profession. I don't want to be a developer anymore, but 80% or more saying that actually like does make coding more fun for them. But at the same time, they're saying like again the big majority saying they don't trust the code at all. So what it means is that when you're talking about, and obviously we gave this survey to professional developers that are mostly working in mid-market and above, etc. And what it means is that you probably can't like use 7 prompts to change one of the leading e-commerce website and without like properly steering, bringing the right context, putting like the right guardrails, etc. So I think that's how to solve the conflict, because like there's those type of people that are actually gaining that like productivity and enjoying AI, but they're not able to achieve what they're seeing in Twitter and X, and that like feels like a FOMO, frustration. And it also caused, by the way, a lot of people to try a lot of stuff and then get frustrated, etc. So I think like my recommendation is to take a step back and take a look on your current software development lifecycle and do the simple like Amdahl law. It's amazing that that person got a name on such a simple law, but I think he got it because not many people practices that. Take a look on your machine, on your process, and chunk it like make a profile like in MATLAB or whatever. Make a profiling and what takes what amount of time, where I'm putting most of my effort, where is my bottleneck, etc. And try to understand like get into the expectation what AI can help you or not, and maybe actually even put AI to work where you didn't expect to put it to work before. And then I think that over time people will overcome this frustration because if they do this process, they will be able to automate more and more and more parts of their software development lifecycle until like a year or 18 months putting this in let's say investment into integrating AI in many places. They might in several like in certain percentage do this prompting prompting to actual production. I think it will happen. You need to invest in it. If it's not heavy duty, okay, you can do that. But a heavy duty, take a deep breath and use your time to invest properly, and you get there. You can get there.
Okay, yeah,
I think you've touched on it. Sorry to interrupt, Siri. I mean, I think a lot of people talk about the kind of greenfield versus brownfield development, and there being this, that's often where the big difference is. That if you're building the game from scratch and you're shipping version 1 of it, then the AI can work magic for you. But if you're trying to get it to understand and work in your million line plus existing system, which has been built over a 10-year period and has all sorts of kind of idiosyncratic variation in the way the code's been written and the patterns used and that kind of thing, that those two are very, very different problems and probably need a fairly fundamentally different approach to working with using AI. But like you say, the problem is that someone coming to it afresh is going to think, well, if it can work in this context, it should also work in that context just as well, with the resulting frustration you feel.
Yeah, I think that just to kind of reiterate also what Itamar mentioned, I think it's a good advice to kind of map your or your kind of code practices and see where are the simple things that you can start and go from there. Sounds like a good advice. Andrew or Jeremy, like anything to add from your experience, how to get like quality software with code generation?
Based on my experience, what I see, it's that really depends on a person. It's tricky because I think good results require developers to change their approach and workflows. So it's not the tool you can easily start using and continue doing everything like you've done yesterday.
Yeah.
So the code completion is great because you don't actually need to do a lot of changes. You just type and now you type faster. But the coding agent, it requires you to kind of rethink how you plan your day, like to think, okay, like, and like the very simple example, to get a meaningful result from delegating tasks to coding agent, you need to invest a lot in some guidelines. You need to invest time into explaining what you want to get. And sometimes what I see with people who get like really great boost in productivity, that they spend 10 minutes on that prompt. So 10 minutes, it's a lot. And many people say, well, I'm not ready to talk 10 minutes to my laptop. But if they do this, they actually get like 60 minutes of work done very fast. And we've had a quite interesting kind of experiment. We've taken 2 small teams and gave them the same task to develop some simple app. So one team spent like just made most of the stuff manually, and they had like small iterations but nice progress. The other team invested a lot of time in like explaining what they need to do, and for like the first 20 minutes they had no progress, but then they finally like won on the last 5 minutes just because the agent just finished everything. So it was like very interesting to see how like invest more approach actually works on practice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So kind of the advice from your side is to invest in preparation and like take the time to really guide the agent in the right way.
Exactly. It's like every complex tool requires some time to learn to get some benefits.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Jeremy?
Yeah, this is all great advice. I think the only thing I have to add is I'm starting to see the code base itself shift to be more agent compatible. And I think these are behaviors that we've actually already started pushing in the industry. So breaking up large complex monoliths into microservices, understanding and deconstructing like highly coupled classes, not having million line files that do stuff. These are all things that break AI, but they're also things that just break developers a lot of times. It's really hard to understand and have that much context. So like these same industry practices that make human brains really good at understanding and being efficient at coding also work really well with AI. And I think as we continue to push down both of those paths, they'll converge at some point, and we'll actually get some really strong benefits once we have good code that works with the right size of context and really good agents that are fit to those types of problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, Itamar,
I can provide. I was just going to say, I can put, sorry to jump in, but I was going to say I can provide an anecdote to support that actually, which is that I've in my own sort of experiments working with coding agents, we have a sort of a more mature code base in our product, which has been existed in some form for about 8 years and evolving very actively over that period of time. And then much more recently, we started building our CLI tool. So the CLI tool is sort of built in a more modern way and is much more sort of modularized and kind of strict in terms of how the module boundaries are enforced and so on like that. And I find that's I mean, it's a smaller code base as well, but it's still a much more productive one to work in with the coding agent. And the agent seems to be able to make a pretty good first guess at how to structure things in that code base, whereas in the other older one, which is where the boundaries are a lot more porous or ill-defined, it struggles a lot more, and you find yourself going through whole sequences of prompts before it starts getting close to what you actually want it to do.
Yeah. Good note, Itamar.
Yeah, so to have an interesting discussion, I'll kind of like contradict a bit Andrew and Jeremy, although eventually maybe it won't. So analyzing the amazing share, Andrew, about having a competition of 1 hour, and eventually if the team that worked with the agent beat the other team in 5 minutes, it means that it's only like 5 divided by 60 productivity gain. But that's exactly what we said, right? But correct me if I'm wrong. At the same time, I think now the AI team they have a spec, and I think that from here it will actually work better for them, and that's a point to think about. And about like Jeremy, interesting point. I agree with you, but again, a bit of the sake of the discussion, one of the things that I noticed that agents are having a hard time right now, and especially like especially AI assistant that are not agents, is understanding with the versioning of different microservices. So I actually heard a different trend of moving from multi-repo microservices to one monorepo, because then every time you progress with the versioning, it's like everyone progressing at the same time. So what right now in production, because now if you have like 5 microservices and microservice A is using 1.1 of microservice B, but B progressed to 1.2, how do you know like what A should relate to? And now a bit so I did see some of that trend, but now to also like take a bit step back, I think you also mentioned that that we are seeing code bases being changed a bit. It is taking time and with the industry to make it easier for agents. So for example, if in microservice A, it says very clearly that it's using 1.1 and here's where to take it and here is the tag, etc. So agents, not necessarily assistant or not agentic yet, but agents is easier for them, and you can make better chance that they will capture that. And you need to provide them with the right like environment to run the right version, etc. So there's more like standardization and process that is running right now to work with heavy duty software, and this like small dilemmas are so exciting and interesting.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I really like that. I think it's just forcing really good behaviors. I think one of my favorite anecdotes was that I learned a long time ago was, computers are really dumb. They do exactly what you tell them to do. I think it's still true with AI agents. So, like, if the instructions are unclear, usually you paper over that with humans and their own context and their history. But now you can't do that anymore. So you have to be so explicit. Um, and I'm like you said, things are all over the place, and I'm curious to see how this continues to evolve as an industry.
So I kind of like to chuck in a counterpoint to that. So just your example, Itamar, I don't know if you were talking about this as something that was necessarily a good thing, but the whole thing about kind of putting things in a monorepo and tagging them all and then having, essentially kind of creating these sort of hard version couplings between microservices. I would argue that's kind of it's kind of destroying a lot of the benefit of microservices in that you're meant to design them to be sort of, loosely coupled to each other. But it also seems like the sort of thing that models will do if you don't tell them not to. It's that kind of shortcut is the kind of thing that models will kind of gravitate towards if you let them, kind of allow them to do it. And where you almost need to explicitly put guardrails in place to say, no, you can't make hard assumptions about the exact version of this service you're connecting to. You have to be able to work with, build me something which is going to be, backwards or forwards compatible or whatever.
So great discussion and points. I want to take to the next question that we had. I think it's very related, the next question, to the discussion, because we were talking about new coding, a new code base versus old code base. And there is that saying from Microsoft that 30% of the code is written automatically by AI now. And we talk a lot about, existing code base versus new code base. And obviously, Microsoft has a lot of existing very large code base. And we also talk about how can you apply agents on a large code base, a complex code base versus simple. So what do you think is happening there in Microsoft and other organizations that are saying 40% of our code is written now by AI, taking into account that obviously they don't have a simple environment?
I mean, it's hard to know really what they mean, because they I think were purposefully vague about their methodology when presenting that. Because it could mean we used autocomplete quite a lot, and that came to kind of roughly 30% of the code that ended up being written, but actually essentially it was the developer very closely driving the context. Or it could genuinely be that they just vibe coded 30% of their applications, and they weren't very forthcoming about that, if I remember rightly from the original source of that statistic.
Yeah. Any other thoughts of anyone?
I maybe just to underscore that. So, part of our mission is to get all the hard data around AI usage and adoption, and APIs are still being developed, and the actual data from these tools is not super available yet. That's changing very quickly, and a lot of these reports of how it's impacting developers are self-reported. So it is hard to necessarily know exactly what that means, and if that's if it's a human fallacy that they misremembered it, or again, as I think everyone's mentioned, is it just a artifact of the law of averages, where some companies are vibe coding entire MVPs and shipping them and making $10 million in ARR, and other companies are maybe using autocomplete a couple of times and backspacing it most of the time.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I did hear in the in a little comments that some of these corporates said that it's for some of their like software, it's like for the Python software and things like that. Okay, but then I think it's also depend what does it mean that AI wrote the code? For example, if somebody asked in ChatGPT something or Gemini or Claude or whatever, and then like copy pasted it and made a few changes. Would you consider it written by AI or not? So I believe, like roughly speaking, there are three categories. There is AI wasn't involved at all. AI wrote like 99% of the, and you decide what's your threshold of this line, or AI was involved. For example, giving two examples how to complete the function, or giving you a first boilerplate and you change 20% of it, etc. And if you consider the third category, the middle category actually, as part of it, I'm actually not surprised of the 30%. And that's something that they didn't like. They weren't explicit about, and I think this is where like these two, which kind of software we're talking about, and actually could be heavy duty software, but maybe depends which, and what does it mean AI wrote the code? I think it's more on the AI involvement, and we try to measure, like we measure that at Qodo and provide that to our customers, these three categories.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, Jeremy, sounds like good ideas for adding KPIs to your product to measure AI contribution. I'm jumping to the next topic, Andrew, maybe for you. I know that a lot of discussions that we had, we saw that a lot of time the code generated is not accurate, and then you need to run iterations with feedback loop and in order to kind of improve the code generated. Like how do you see the feedback loop, and what are the kind of the means that you take in order to make it more accurate in that sense?
Yeah, great question. I think it's actually a little bit connected maybe with the previous one, because I was stressed out that it really like depends on area. So maybe to connect this to question, I'd say that when you have large code bases and large teams, usually you also like have some developer productivity teams, and they have actually enough time to invest and to look in what areas of this code base we have a lot of small tasks we can actually trust AI to be more autonomous, because, for example, it's really well covered with tests, or it's really easy to check that everything is okay. So like I expect that 30% is not like on average on every file, but there could be some areas of project of huge code base, maybe huge backlog of some small refactorings, improvements, upgrading a version of Java, something like this. So like in the previous context, we've never done it, or like it we kept it in our backlogs for ages. But now we have this tool. We know this, it's kind of good task just to upgrade dependency version, or like improve, like change code style from this to that, or like add logging, something fairly simple. And it could be huge impact in terms of lines of code. Yeah, and going more to safety. So I think it's huge topic, and I think it's definitely not solved in the moment, and that's why it's very interesting to dive deep. So I think it's mixed. So first of all, we got a lot of good practices that we created before AI, like all the practices we've created to improve human written code. So that's if we're talking about IDs, so that's semantic text, semantic analysis, syntax analysis. It's testing in some niche areas, it's verification, it's like code reviews, all this stuff. I think more interesting now is that we currently, like in general, I think we all invest much more in code generation and less in how we actually evaluate the code quality. So that's the topic we focus on, because I think it would be like every month more and more important because we get much more of generated code. So I think no simple answer here. I think it's kind of mix of all the tooling we have already adopted to AI, and it's definitely new tooling we create.
Yeah. Tom, so maybe a question for you. I know that we talked at WireMock about feedback loops with regards to integration challenges. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think, to echo Andrew's point, I think the key to improving these things is actually to sort of leverage tools that were created sort of in the pre-AI era that were meant to help human beings automate their way to being able to produce better quality code faster. And WireMock is a specific example of that. So the purpose of it has always been to create a sort of controlled simulated environment in which you can run an integrated piece of code and to be able to to quickly create these sort of variations of conditions so that you can thoroughly test it and explore its behavior. And really, this lends itself very well to AI generated code when the AI agent can automate the creation of those conditions and then take feedback from that environment in order to sort of learn and improve from them. So it's, so what we're experimenting with is exactly that. The idea of saying, build me a piece of API integration code or something that needs to talk to some APIs, build a simulated environment that will create these kind of known good cases, bad cases, faults, whatever, and don't stop until everything's green and until you're pulling validation reports from the mocked environment and checking that they're telling you that you're calling these APIs in a compliant way. And that's something that's very automatable in a tight loop now.
Anyone else want to refer to that feedback loop before we jump to the next question? We have time for one or two more questions, and I also remind the people attendees that you can submit questions. Okay, cool. So let's jump to the next topic. I think, like I said, one or two more questions before we wrap up. An interesting question. There is a lot of interesting debates about that. I saw people, publishing blogs about the fact that now there will be much less developers and companies will cut, their developers and will be able to develop much more with much less developers. And then there are a lot of articles talking about actually that there will be many more developers with AI. So what is your kind of view on that?
I think maybe to throw out a really hot take to start with, one of the things that I have heard from a number of business leaders in the space is they're interested in AI and agentic development because they want to know how much of their R&D costs they can cut. And it's a very heavy-handed view of the world and loses a lot of the nuance. But sometimes that's the context you're going into these conversations with. That's how you're proving your ROI of agentic development.
I mean, it's arguably an economics question, isn't it? Which probably means that I'm maybe not totally qualified to answer it, but it sort of seems like in times where companies are looking to cut costs as their primary way of sort of maintaining their margins, then it will be used as a way of cutting costs, as a way of cutting R&D spend. But you can equally see that when you get sort of more positive kind of economic tailwinds, that it'll have the opposite effect, that everybody will be doing, the sort of Jevons paradox kicks in and people are doing more of everything. And then you need more people despite the fact that each individual is more productive.
I think, first of all, it requires defining what is a developer and developers. And I think that evolves. Like, I think a developer today is different than a developer 40 years ago. All right. I think very different, especially 50, but very different, type of engineering that you needed to know. And I think that will continue to evolve. If we go to the extreme of a developer becoming a creator, then I think we actually have many more. I think we'll also have more people that actually need to be even more sophisticated in knowing knowing like system and architecture and like small like nuances, because they're like, I think like companies would need to have more of them, because AI is gonna might make some problem that need to be fixed. At the same time, like if we can try to learn from other professions. If you take the developer as is today and you stick with that, then for example, if we take the hardware developer, like from 40 years ago, do we have less or more? It changed a lot. A lot moved to the software development. A lot using like the tools that they have today for hardware, and back then it's like almost the same, and in my opinion, almost the same like jump, and the same for, sorry, like agriculture, etc. Right? Like, you know, you can do much more with machines, or you need less people. So I think like overall we will see some parts of the software development actually having more people dealing and doing with it, and some part of it going to be more automated by a machine, and some part of it decreasing, but actually requiring some speciality that going to be worth a lot. So that's like the develop that I believe will happen.
Okay. Andrew, anything to add?
My expectation is that we'll definitely have this number of developers, or actually more developers. And like, first, based on my experience, I've never seen a development team that was able to cover all the backlog and roadmap. So like, it's always, we have hundreds of ideas not developed, not delivered, because we don't have enough people. And it's always like, businesses are always limited, not even by the fact that like we don't want to hire more developers, but it's always very time consuming to hire developers. It's hard to scale your development team, because like you have some negative effects of growing team. It's like economically, maybe some features you would like to develop, but you're not sure that the return of investment would actually be beneficial for you. But if we can now like develop, like scale our development team probably faster, it would be a mix of today's developers, and it would be some mix of agents. But anyway, agents need human developers. So overall, I do think that the great outcome that we would have 10 times more features delivered. And that would actually enable companies and businesses even kind of maybe to create bigger development teams overall.
I think you touched on something really interesting there, Andrew, that I just wanted to double click on. I think one of the cool things about, let's say, AI does magically increase productivity 100x. The business landscape kind of shifts from experiments that you do for your business being limited by the number of developers you can hire and support and teams you can grow, to like your capacity to actually experiment and track it and understand the results of it. So we completely shift the dynamics, and I think in some cases don't even know what that's going to look like.
No, I think it's a good point what Andrew raised about the ability to deliver much more. I think we have time for last question. We had like really good advices and best practices while you were talking. But maybe kind of for each one of you, what is the one thing that you recommend the attendees to adopt in order to improve their AI journey? And I know that we talked about some of this already, but maybe kind of the one thing that you want them to take from this call as an advice.
Yeah, I can take. I think like to think for a second and say how important it is for me, my organization, to change gear, change mindset to be AI first. And if it is, don't only follow, you know, the FOMO, like, hey, like now this coding agent is amazing. Let's try it out. you might actually realize that if you, for example, take one person in each department, even if that department is 3 people, especially if it's 50, and tell that person your KPI, your key result, objective, whatever you want to call it, is like thoughtfully, but with bias to action, introduce AI, you might find that there's so many ways that you can like boost your performance, quality, productivity, etc. That is not just what you see on Twitter and X. Like today, I saw creating cats videos with one of the tools. So so I think like that might like really think like, do you believe in this transformation, in this new world that is still in building, and do you want to take part of it, and is it could change your game for the better or avoid the fact that you might be overrun? And if yes, like try to take a zoom out and then see like in what way, what's your strategy to go into it? And one way is what I said, like choosing like doing almost like A/B testing, because it's really hard to know in advance what will work for you, not in Twitter or not, and then like making those owners that are charged in different areas to actually experiment, and when they experiment, have a methodology. What are we trying to improve? How do I measure that? Okay, it could be NPS, like your developers or your sales are happy or not, but maybe there are other ways to verify that. That's my suggestion.
Okay, great suggestion. Jeremy?
Yeah, you kind of took what I was going to say, Itamar, but I'll just add a little bit onto that. Experimentation is key, but knowing what your outcome is even more important. So, if you're going to introduce AI, you should know what you hope it accomplishes for your team and the organization and the business. But to find out what those benefits are going to be, you have to experiment. So knowing if your ROI is increased capacity to say service customers on your CS team, if it is increased ability to get things out of your backlog, if it is the ability to build really high quality code by your internal code metrics, what is it that you hope to significantly improve? And start there, and then make sure you measure your experiments by it.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew?
Totally agree, and I would actually say like this, that I think very different approaches, and I think the good approach I would suggest is kind of build the culture of curiosity inside your organization, and actually be prepared to a marathon. It's not like one sprint for 1 month when we need to adopt new tooling and learn new framework, and then it would be all good, and we just continue. I would say it's something that would shape our industry for like next several years for sure. Like we see how like we have a lot of advancements like every month. So it's not like 1 month transaction. Like build a culture where you can do these improvements every month. And like there are definitely already today some low-hanging fruits to get 10% productivity boost or maybe 50% productivity boost. Like, yeah, do this, measure this, but overall kind of think of it as a very continuous process. And it's amazing when people don't try to push back all this innovation, but like sincerely curious and they want to play with stuff. And I think it's very important what I do in my team. Like I support a lot, investing time in very random experiments here and there. Like most of experiments would fail. Like it wouldn't be productive, but let's try different approaches and different tooling and see how it goes.
Okay. Tom, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, so I'm probably repeating myself slightly, but I suppose the advice I'd leave with is that there's a wealth of kind of techniques and tactics for producing good quality, production ready code quickly and on short lead times. There's a load of stuff that pre-existed the kind of AI era, and I would encourage teams wanting to build production-ready code with AI tools to try and figure out how to bring those tools to bear in their AI workflows, because they'll arguably deliver even more value in this context than they even did sort of prior to AI coding assistance.
Okay, great. I think that this was a really great conversation. I can say that I personally enjoyed and learned a lot in this conversation. I hope that the entire audience and attendees also found it useful. And yeah, I want to thank everyone that attended and the panelists. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
It was super fun.
Thank you all. It was great.
Thanks so much. Amazing.
Learned.
Make it now every month. Thank you. Bye-bye.